Welcome to ChiroSphere, where we talk about all things chiropractic and some things, well, not so chiropractic. I'm Dr. Ray Foxworth, your host for ChiroSphere and CEO of ChiroHealth USA, the network that works for chiropractic. Today, our guest is a true champion of the chiropractic profession, Marc Abla. As the CEO of the Illinois Chiropractic Society, Marc has dedicated over 2 decades to advancing chiropractic care and fostering healthier Illinois. Marc has spearheaded significant growth alongside the ICS team through increased political advocacy, expanded education opportunities, and vital content delivery to the chiropractic physicians across Illinois. His impact doesn't stop with the ICS. Marc also serves nationally as the District 2 Director for Chiro Congress and has previously chaired the Leadership Committee for the Chiropractic Future Strategic Plan. Additionally, Marc is the CEO of PractiSync, an ICS-owned management service organization that provides essential billing, documentation efficiency, and other services to the chiropractic practices nationwide. His commitment to professional excellence and personal fulfillment exemplifies his multifaceted approach to life. In today's podcast, we're going to delve into an enlightening conversation with this gentleman and kind of uncover some insights into his work and his dedication to advancing chiropractic. But the most important thing I want you to know about Marc is he is a dear friend of mine, a confidant, and one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Welcome, my friend.
Well, thank you. Love having you. That is an incredibly long bio. We probably could have just shortened it to, hey, this is Marc. But thanks, Doc. I appreciate you and feel the same about you.
Well, thank you, sir. So Marc is CEO of the ICS. Like I said, you've dedicated over 20 years to advancing the profession. Just curious, what drew you to chiropractic and what's really fueled your passion for our profession?
I think actually those are almost two entirely different answers.
Break them out.
Yeah, I had my dad got some help from a local chiropractor. When I was about 10 years old, and I ended up going myself a little bit there, but really had not been to a chiropractor in a long time, and ended up in the same places as a friend of mine a lot. His wife and my sister were best friends, so we ended up landing in the same place. He happened to be serving on the Illinois Chiropractic Society board of directors at the time and said, hey, there's this open position, you need to come interview. Of course, this was about 23 years ago, I guess, or something like that. But he kept telling me I needed to come. I kept telling him, no, I was fine. I'm good. I don't need to interview. And finally, I decided I'm never going to get him off my back if I don't just go and interview, and then he'll leave me alone. I went and had the interview, talked to my predecessor, and ended up being incredibly intrigued, made the move over to work for the association to represent chiropractic physicians here in Illinois. And that was a long time ago. Time ago.
You drank the chiropractic Kool-Aid.
I did. I think the passion, though, that's a different answer, right? That's a little bit different. That really comes from, I think, the people. And also the more and more I found myself working with the doctors and of course, ensuring that a chiropractic physician is a true part of my personal healthcare team as well. I found that the profession has something to offer, not just patients, right? But I think employer groups and the overall health, I guess, of societies. After a while, and then you get, by the way, so it's all of those things, but then you get to know the people. And at the end of the day, I really do think it's centered more around the people than anything. And I found that I've got close friends that are in the profession, and our members are just so dedicated to their patients and serve them well. And so I find it easy to continue to be passionate about the chiropractic profession.
Just curious, what were you doing before ICS?
So I worked for a couple of different companies, primarily in the 90s. I worked for an equipment leasing company out of Denver, actually. We leased everything from PCs to aircraft to Fortune 500 companies. That was my background, everything from accounting into sales with that particular organization. So business is my background. It's not healthcare. It's business.
So under your leadership, the ICS has certainly seen significant growth, particularly in political advocacy. I know you've made a lot of improvements there along with your colleagues. You've also influenced education educational opportunities there for your docs and content delivery. How about share some of the key strategies or initiatives contributing to this growth?
Yeah, well, first, and maybe this answers the second at the same time, we have an incredible team. We really do. We have people that have been part of our team for a very long time. Our leadership team, which is, our board level, our doctors who volunteer their time and energy and effort, incredible thought leaders in the profession as well. So this is, I get to be a part of that. It's not necessarily under my leadership, if you will. Really, I just get to be a part of an incredible team. So again, our volunteer leaders, the vision that they would have and where they wanted to go, and we combined that with staff expertise and our team at the Illinois Chiropractic Society and the ICS, who could chart a course and say, hey, this is where we want to go. Let's find the best pathway to get from here to there. And so really it came down to quite a few strategy discussions. And so we would sometimes start small and work our way into some of the larger initiatives, and we found some incredible success. But really, bluntly, we've had an unbelievable team members who have contributed their time and energy and their expertise and influence. Because at the end of the day, that's the home run. Really, it's the home run in leadership. It's the home run in politics as well.
So I'm curious, 20 years into this, we all look back over our careers and say, wow, we got that done. What do you think has been the most significant achievement? Not by you, but your team, the whole group. What has happened that you didn't think you could make happen?
Wow. We've been blessed with some really good growth with our membership, and I think it's because of some of our offerings. We've taken some chances over the course of time. I look back, it was in the 2008 timeframe, and we all do really stupid stuff in our life, right? And this was one of my stupid stuff moments. And sat down with previous presidents. So we have what we call our Gallo Club, which are our previous presidents. And we'd gone through some pretty rough times at the Capitol, and we really just come to the conclusion that we were tired of simply being on the menu. And we wanted to be at the table.
Really?
And sometimes you have to drive yourself to get there. You have to push. And there are some industries that do a great job of defending. I look at, chemical companies, if you will, their lobby group. They would say, we've never passed a bill, we've never passed legislation, but they do quite a bit of defense work. And the ICS had done really great defense work over the course of a long period of time. And when we started doing some research, we found that it had been about 58 years since the Illinois Chiropractic Society had created an initiative, introduced it, and sought to fruition and got it passed. And we decided so we needed to be at the table. And so we charted a really, again, that strategic effort to find a way to make sure that we were at the table. And so here's the stupid moment. As I sit down with these past presidents, and I just asked them, I said, when's the last time that the ICS passed any legislation? And the room just went dead quiet. And after about 30 seconds, Lawrence slammed his hands down on the table. He said, never. And I looked at him and said, Doctor, I said, actually, it was 1951. But you're never going to be able to say that again after this year. Now, that was the stupid moment. You can't control politics. And I look back on that, and I'm like, what was I thinking? That was the dumbest thing I could have ever said in that moment. But what it did is I think it motivated all of us. It motivated our staff and our team to get things done. And we were incredibly fortunate that year. And we ended up actually passing 3 small changes. They weren't anything that were huge. They were small changes. One of them was a grab back from something we'd lost in a couple of years previously. And they did great work. And at the end of the day, we were able to gain back that one and add a couple of other small things to the suite of services that our doctors could offer their patients and their practice. And that set us on a new course and set us to be able to then, in subsequent years, pass further and further legislation. We were able to do some scope clarification that had needed to be done for a very long time. We were able to work with the medical society in redefining delegation in Illinois to protect our doctors from what we knew was going to be an adverse ruling from the regulatory agency. And then also limit recruitment clawbacks through some recruitment legislation that we passed about 4 or 5 years after that. That ultimately limited it from indefinite, so they could have gone back and were, by the way, in some cases as much as 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and took money back from our doctors, and we were able to get that limited down to 18 months. By the way, it's 12 months now. So we've seen some great things over the course of time, and again, tribute to the foresight of our volunteer leadership and our great team here at the ICS.
Yep. So your moment of stupidity, in retrospect, turned out to be a moment of brilliance and inspiration to the docs that had served before.
Let's call it inspiration, maybe.
Inspiration.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I'll settle for that. So as I recall, doctors in Illinois can get their CEUs most anywhere, and many states depend on CEUs for their revenue. So since they don't have to rely on ICS for that, what is it that you do that make doctors feel like they should be members? What value and things are you bringing to them to where it's not, I got to be a part of the ICS to get my CEUs. There's one mindset that, I got to be a part of the association to get CEUs, but very few associations have done a great job in saying, I want to be a member of an organization.
Yeah, and that's our goal. That's everything that we do. Everything's about the value proposition. So when it comes to CEU, we have modified our thought processes from it being that area that helps sustain financially the organization to instead being a value add and increasing our value proposition to our members. And so what we have done is actually rolled in a lot of that education. In fact, we do about, we follow our numbers about 20, but we do quite a few more than that each year, but we do 20 webinars a year. And when you look at those specifically hard hours that our doctors have to achieve, that means that they can actually get 100% of their hours that are required for renewal from us as a part of their membership. But that's one of those small things. We also try to create forms and templates to make things easier for them and give them efficiencies in their practice. We find discounts that are relevant to them and finding pathways for them to have some financial savings in their practice that they would not necessarily otherwise have without the ICS. The last is we've looked for other innovative ways to impact the practice. We want our doctors to be wildly successful. We know that compliance, and I'll use this as an example because this was rolled out really within the last 6 or 7 months. But compliance is a tough one, and it's so hard for our doctors to keep track. Hospital systems will spend an enormous amount of money every year. In fact, the typical hospital, not even the system, but a hospital will spend about $6 to $7 million a year just on compliance. And we know our doctors just don't have those type of resources. The reimbursements just aren't going to allow for that. So we look at things differently. We looked at a way and said, how can we help our doctors make sure that they can track their compliance, complete it, finish it? And we started to work with a couple of different entities, and one in specific, and develop software to allow our doctors to be able to track all of their compliance. It gives them some how-to information, and it also will expire those things and then also make them then renew, if you will. So when they have to relook at things according to the requirements, it'll come back up and pop up and remind them that they have to complete that again. So we made that investment, and we talked about a lot of different ways about how we could look at the software. We decided to make it a pure ICS member benefits. We actually give it to our doctors. So we invested in them and in their practice and their ability to be able to handle these things that sometimes are complicated, and I'm sure for them in their everyday practice, overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. It truly is a challenge, particularly when you're a solo practitioner. I mean, you're chief cook, bottle washer, compliance officer, HR, and let's face it, a lot of doctors, when compliance first kind of came into our space, if you will, or we became aware of it, it's always been there.
Right.
We've all got our compliance manual in the plastic wrapper sitting on the shelf, which isn't exactly what you need to be compliant means. So that's a huge value add, I'm sure, for your doctors there. So, as you know, I'm a strong proponent for state associations, and I'd like to know from your perspective why you think only about 50% of our docs belong to state associations. And I think on the national level, it's somewhere around 25%.
Yeah, I hate answering this question in public and in
Okay, well, we
private
can move on.
and in the bar. No, no. I think, I normally would say the gruff side of me, right? The unempathetic side of me would say it's apathy. And I think it's a little bit different than that as well, truthfully. When we're really admitting everything, I think what it really comes down to is a lack of understanding. I think the doctors really don't understand, because so much of it is somewhat esoteric. Some of it is soft, and you think, well, the associations are going to continue to represent us at the Capitol anyway. They're going to continue to advocate for us with payers. They're going to continue to have conversations with employer groups and try to gain an advantage. And they lose sight of the fact that the only way we do that is with their support. And so it's difficult, because I think it's that lack of understanding of that critical importance of each of the state associations. And those that are even in smaller states, with smaller state associations, it's even more important for them to join. And not trying to downplay the larger states and the larger state associations, but it's even more difficult for them, because they need to ensure that they're hiring the best people that can represent them well. So I think it's a lack of understanding.
Yeah, something that I've certainly observed in my lifetime, with my mom and dad both being chiropractors. When they moved to Mississippi, we didn't even have a license. They couldn't get a license. This was 1973, which is kind of hard. The year I graduated high school, it's like, what do you mean you're a chiropractor and you don't have a license? I often say there's never been a better time to be in chiropractic, and my concern is maybe in the last 10 years, because there's been I think a big shift in the acceptance of chiropractic and the growth of it. And, I don't know if enough people coming into the profession really understand our history and the work and the effort that it took to get us where they are. And so they've, it's just, well, I'm going to step into it, and, it's doing okay without me. And I'm a firm believer that you will get out of this profession what you put into it. And let's face it, we've got people coming after us and generations coming after us that if nothing else, out of respect for our forefathers that got us where we are, we ought to be kind of paying that forward for the next generation. All right, hang tight, everyone. We're going to take about a 30-second break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back with you. Welcome back to our podcast with Marc Abla, CEO of the Illinois Chiropractic Society. So in addition to your role with ICS, you also served as the first chairman of the Chiropractic Future Strategic Plan. And I personally thank you for stepping up to do this. You really set us up for success. For those that may not be aware of the strategic plan, how about spend a couple of minutes and give us a high-level overview of what that plan is and why it's critical to our future?
Yeah. So, by the way, it was a humbling experience to be able to serve in that capacity. It was great with the level of volunteers and the unbelievable leadership that has helped advance the plan. But really, the plan in and of itself is finally taking that deep breath and saying, what does the profession need now and into the future? Looking at everything together with this fully unbiased and I'll just stick with unbiased approach to the profession, to be able to say, where can we go? Where do we need to go? And where do we need to impact change? And so everybody has their own little ideas, but what does the profession think as a whole? And I think that's really what stemmed out of some of our meetings from 2019, and but also then prompted a movement to hire entities from a third-party perspective that brought in that outside expertise to be able to analyze, create the right surveys that got the involvement of about 4,000 chiropractic physicians or chiropractors from across the country, and also then think tanks and focus groups to be able to drill down, what does the profession really want? Not just what do we think that they want, but what does the profession want? And it was interesting as we went through that process to realize that there was so much, number one, and finding out was only the beginning. right? Finding out was only that small little piece that had to be done as the strategic plan began to come to fruition, as we began to take the information into those actionable steps. We realized it was going to take a long time to be able to get this done, and it was going to take an effort of a structured and bottom-up organization, and that's really where the birth of Chiropractic Future Strategic Plan came from. How can we get this done? And I will tell you, it's pretty amazing to watch some of the key leaders in the profession just get neck deep in the middle of trying to find ways to create exactly what the profession is indicating that they want. And I think we've seen that with research, and we've seen that with technology. It's one of those things that everybody would say, we need more technology in the profession, but really didn't have a pathway to help us get from point A to point B. And then the marriage of technology and research, just to use these two as an example. And we find that synergy between all of these different efforts that the profession identified as critical to advance the chiropractic profession and to increase the overall utilization of chiropractic, and also the overall understanding of chiropractic being an integral part of patients' healthcare teams. So it's been cool to see all of those pieces work together.
You know, what impressed me about the work that was done on the surveys is, number one, when's the last time you've seen 4,000 chiropractors do anything collectively? And that really was impressive to see those kind of numbers. And then, you know, the other part of it was amazing to see the level of consensus, with the exception of a few items. It truly is. You know, I think that's kind of what made us hang our hat on this concept of unity without uniformity. You know, at the end of the day, we're all chiropractors. We have common goals and wishes and dreams. And, you know, for so long, we focused on differences rather than on our commonality. So it's really been interesting to see that happen. So let's kind of pivot for a minute. You're now also, so you're a 2 CEO guy. You're CEO of PractiSync. I hope I'm saying that right. That's an ICS-owned management service organization, or MSO. You provide essential services to chiropractic practices literally nationwide. What challenges are doctors facing in billing, documentation efficiency, and practice management? And what exactly does PractiSync do to help doctors with that?
Yeah, so it actually birthed out of the strategic plan for the Illinois Chiropractic Society, as we really looked at what are our pathways to help our doctors. Again, I mentioned, you know, we want our doctors to have practice vitality. We want them to be wildly successful as they're helping and treating their patients. But as we continue on the current healthcare paradigm, you know, we know that economies of scale and efficiencies are absolutely critical. So it's why we see hospital systems continually, if you will, purchasing small medical practices and rolling them into their system. They have economies of scale, and they have fewer staff in those particular situations because they don't need as much. Compliance can be taken care of. All of these areas of difficulty, and they're typically incredibly expensive and sometimes duplicative across practices, then can be rolled into a single thing or into a single unit. But this profession, chiropractic profession, loves the solo practice. It loves the small entities. It loves that entrepreneur spirit. And so we had to come up with a new way. And if we're going to find that for the most part, not in every case, but many parts, the chiropractors want to stay on their own, then we've got to find a way to help them realize those economies of scale. And so that was the birth, if you will, of PractiSync, was let's create a separate entity that will have, if you will, value add services that ultimately we try to find ways to create pricing that is attractive for those who are bought into, who understand the importance of state associations. And so we've leaned into that a lot. And so billing or revenue cycle management is our key service at this moment. It was the one that we felt like that we could make the fastest dent. We also know that we want our doctors to not just get paid at the front end, but also keep their money on the back end. And so helping them with documentation and finding efficient methods to be able to complete documentation so that they can then keep it and hopefully protect it on the backside as well. That's the second service that we have layered in, and those are just the start. We hope those are just the start.
That certainly has been a challenge for our profession is, quote, playing well with others. I can go up here about 2 miles from here is Mississippi Sports Medicine, about 30 orthopedic surgeons. I can go a little further down the road and there's GI associates, about 25 GI docs. And, I think part of the challenge for us, when I look back on my education and career, is we were really taught to be islands. We did our own exams, we did our own x-rays, we didn't, collaborate, and just because of the sheer nature of our practice back then was, we didn't get a lot of collaboration from other professionals. So, it was almost kind of baked into our background and our training. And I think the economy and changes post-COVID with being able to find workers, while we may have been resistant to combining practices or having group practices, while we may have never wanted to do it on our own, I think it's going to force a lot of doctors into realizing the efficiencies of, wow, I can be a solo practice. And if I have to leave if I want to take a vacation or I have an illness, I'm shut down. I mean, my overhead goes on, but my income goes away. And I will tell you, having practiced as a solo doc for a long, long time, after I brought on associates and saw really that it gave me my life back. And, as I told the docs that work for them, I don't want them to go through what I went through as a solo practitioner because, be personal, I miss my kids growing up, Mark, because I'm busting my chops trying to build a practice, trying to build our income. And, I don't want to see people go through that. And if we would begin to embrace perhaps, the group type of practice where you do have that economies of scale, it just makes a lot more sense. We got, say, 30, 35 chiropractors in our town, and we got 35 x-rays, we got 35 billing people, we got 35 scheduling people. And, if you want to increase your profits, doc, consider working with other doctors or possibly in a group practice and experience that economy of scale. So I think what you're doing is absolutely wonderful. As you may know, my practice was part of a spine center, still is, for a number of years. And management service organizations are kind of the norm in the medical field. And so I'm glad to see you kind of leading the charge and making that happen. I think it'll make a huge difference for your docs and, well, actually for the profession. So looking ahead, what are your goals and aspirations for the future of chiropractic care in Illinois? What's your next big thing?
So for me personally, it's just getting through the next year. As we're growing the new entity.
Long-term goal, survive.
Long-term, yeah. I want to find, again, more and more ways that we can help serve our members. That's why we're here. It's what we're here. We're working on some initiatives through the Illinois Chiropractic Society specifically, where we're trying to find ways to ensure that the most unfortunate in Illinois are able to seek the care that they so desperately need. Although we have some legislative support, in fact, we already have actually the law supporting it. So now we're working on regulatory bodies to ensure that chiropractic physicians are fully covered under the Medicaid system with reimbursement that actually makes sense. And so that's really high on our priority list from a lobbying perspective and moving the needle in that regard. We're also working on other initiatives surrounding reimbursement specific to some parity and from some reasonable, well, for lack of a better way of putting it, ensuring that patients can choose the right provider and there's not a down effect, if you will, of discriminatory pricing for chiropractic physicians, where the pricing is such that chiropractic physicians aren't able to be in certain plans and help certain patients because they're not receiving reimbursement that would be equal to their counterparts in other fields of expertise, if you will, in the healthcare world, for the exact same service, the exact same codes. And so we're looking for those pathways legislatively to be able to see that done. And in the meantime, trying to find those economies of scale for our doctors through our management service organization and through other services that we can offer. We're still expanding what we're doing with satisfying. Right? I didn't mention earlier that the software that we created for compliance and to help us track the compliance. We're improving Satisfy dashboard to give them more information. So all of these things are short and long term plan as we can continually develop our return on investment for our members.
Awesome. So if a doctor's interested in, since you are nationwide with a PractiSync, if doctors are interested in how to become a part of that, how do they go about that? Or where can they go for information?
Yeah, so actually you can go check us out and on our website, which is PractiSync, and that's SYNC at the end, sync. The idea is that we're actually working closely with the practices to help them be better. We want to sync with them and not just be this extra group that does work for them, but we want to partner with them and help them become more efficient. And that really is a focus of our mission and a conversation that we have at the executive level all the time. But they can go to PractiSync.com, our website, and take a look at that. You can reach out to me directly. Either through my PractiSync email, but my ICS email is so much easier. So just reach out at Marc, MARC, at ilchiro.org. However you want to get in touch, we would love to have a conversation with you and figure out. And I didn't mention this earlier, Ray, but one of the cool things that we're done, again, because we're owned by a state association, we hone in and we focus on state associations. And so what we have done is we actually currently have affinity programs set up with state associations. So members of the Washington State Chiropractic Association, the California Chiropractic Association, Colorado Chiropractic Association, Kentucky Association of Chiropractors, and who am I forgetting? Oh, Alaska as well. The Alaska Chiropractic Society. All receive significant discounts on our services. And we also then return funds as well and support those state associations specifically. We really truly believe in the power of the state association. We want that state association to be strong. And so any way that we can give back into the profession and do it right up front, that's the direction.
Yep. I think that is really impressive. Typically you look at, it's almost like chiropractors, they look at their colleagues as competitors. I think it's absolutely wonderful that you've kind of embraced the idea of exponential organizations, a wonderful book if no one's read it. So it's really, really neat to see the associations taking advantage of that economy of scale and working together for the betterment of the profession rather than looking at the other states as, oh, that's my competition. So kudos for bringing that about. So I got some just for fun questions.
Great.
Who's your hero and why?
Oh my goodness. That's hilarious because actually you and I talked about this question actually. And I asked you what's your favorite interview question, I don't know, a handful of months ago. And I think you threw this one out and I use it on occasion. And I think it's telling. I don't know. I mean, this is an interesting one because I don't know they're looked at it like that. I think sometimes your heroes are in the moment. And they're who drive you. And I could look at, from a leadership perspective, who are the people who I have really looked at. And from a leadership perspective, I look at like John Maxwell or Patrick Lencioni. I think they're phenomenal. I think inside the chiropractic profession, and I wish it was somebody else asking me this question because then I wouldn't hesitate to say that I think Dr. Ray Foxworth is an incredible light in the chiropractic profession. I don't consider him in the profession one of my heroes. I think from a lifelong perspective. Well, again, if somebody was just asking me, it would sound more genuine, but it would be the exact same answer.
Yeah, the checks in the mail, Mark.
Yeah, I think the easy answer, and it's going to sound like that. If you want insurance company, it's a Sunday school answer. My dad, he had the privilege of impacting people's lives and speaking into them. And he was incredibly empathetic, would always look at the perspective of other people. Taught me a lot. Took me way too long to learn those things. Still learning, by the way, not going to lie. But my father was amazing. And so I look to what he has done for me and what he breathed into me in that area as well from in that perspective. But I do believe that, it's pockets of who is that influencer, who is that hero in different portions of our life and different times.
So what talent do you have that most people don't know about?
Wow, I don't even know. Maybe I don't have any talent. We play a lot of board games, so strategy is always, and we got into. They used to refer to them as Euro games, but now they're a bit more mainstream than they ever had been before we first started doing it. So I don't know, maybe strategic board gaming it might be one of them. I've been fortunate to be in the right place at the right time and maybe some insight. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but it was interesting. Early on in my career at the Illinois Chiropractic Society, I did a whole lot more lobbying then than I do now. And when I was at the Capitol and we were pushing some legislation, and I had the chance to lobby at the time, the chairperson, this is early 2000s, the chairperson of the Judiciary Committee. And so I lobbied him all the way back to his office, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going over here now. I just drop off the paperwork in my office." And so here's the foresight or insight or skill, talent, whatever you want to call this. I don't even know. I've never been blown off and felt good about it like I was that particular day. So I left. He was my last visit, my last push of the day. And I headed back to our office and I called a friend of mine who I was living in Arkansas. I'm like, "Hey, write this down because I'm going to make a prediction." But I think I just talked to a future president of the United States. And I talked to him. I said, I don't know what it was. You can tell he's brilliant. He knows his stuff. He's widely learned, and at the end of the day, I never felt good about being told no, like I was today. And I was way off in my time frame that I gave him there. I'm like, I think maybe even, he's nobody. He's a state senator right now, and has no national influence at all. And I said, I don't know if it's going to matter, but at the end of the day, I think we're going to find that by 2016, he very well will be the president of the United States. I missed it by 8 years. It was President Barack Obama.
Wow.
So I don't know. And I don't know if that's a talent or not, but I think it's a fun story. It's 100%
No
true.
doubt.
Somebody will back me up. Maybe luck. Maybe we should go with luck and say maybe that's my skill or talent, right?
I got it.
So,
Well, thanks for spending some time with me today, Mark, and thank everyone for listening to ChiroSphere podcast. Please subscribe and share the podcast with your friends and let us know who you'd like to hear from in the future and what topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll do our best to deliver. If you want to learn more about ChiroHealth USA and how we can help you develop a compliant, profitable discount strategy that will absolutely grow your practice, income, and profitability, call us at 888-719-9990 or visit the website at chusa.com. That's how you spell CHUSA, to find out why ChiroHealth USA is the network that works for chiropractic and you. Make it a great day. Thanks, Mark.
thank you, Doctor.